Yes, there was a question about noumenal reasoning on page, noumenal reasoning, yes, page 23.
22 and 23 footnote. There are four reasonings.
Yeah, the reasoning starts on 22. The four reasonings, which we didn't go over. At the bottom of page 22, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the impact of realizing this state or continuum of the noumenon of pure nature. The four reasonings, the word is rikpa, and it could be looked on as the four types of investigation. If we're going to investigate things, how do we investigate? How do we look into things? How do we look into matters? How do we look into the stuff around us? The reasoning of reliance means to look into causes. Somebody even brings in a nice piece of pizza. What's the cause of this pizza? Meaning, where'd you get it? What store did you get it from? Somebody brings in, we're used to getting some good Chinese food. I don't know why I'm thinking of food so much, but anyway. And, there used to be a good cook in such a plaza in Charlottesville. And I went there and the food wasn't so good anymore. So what happened? Well, that's causation. And that guy moved to a different plaza. He's down by the university now. So if you want to get that cook's food, you go there. Causation. And there are some very obvious things, but, where do you get such good corn? Well, you get it from a corn. I come from New England. Corn stalk, or as we say, corn stork. Corn stalk. Corn stalk. Stalk. And where do you get that? You got to plant corn seeds. Really. You got to plant seeds. Or you got to go to the store and store and put out your money. All right? Causation. And really, in this case, the examples given are always of causation. Performance of function. What's the function of this? What's the function of that? Easy enough. Function of fire is to burn. Function of water is to moisten. I'm drinking. I did not intend that as an illustration. That's why I'm laughing. I am moistening my tongue and my throat. Right? Chawa chebe rikpa. Chawa cheba. Cheba means perform. Chawa here is function. Reasoning of tenable proof is the usual type of reasoning. The usual one. And the one we might think of when we use the word reasoning. That's why I explained reasoning in these four types as four types of investigation, four types of looking into things. And the reasoning of nature and the nature of water, it's interesting. What's going through my mind is in a sense, repeating function, but that which is wet and moistening, that's his nature. And that's what water is. It's wet and moistening. And that's just plain, it's usually explained as, that's just plain his nature. That's it. That's what water is. What's fire? It's hot and burning. Wind or air, it's light and moving. Sa, chu, me. Sa, earth, that which is hard and obstructive. So, my new, this plastic thing, it's hard and obstructive. It's obstructive to things of similar type, but as far as I'm getting into subtleties, but things of a different type of body, it won't obstruct it. That type of body can move through it. I don't know as I need to get that subtle. But actually, somewhere I was reading about why there are different contemporary, shall we call it contemporary? Buddhist science is also contemporary. So, you know what I'm trying to talk about. When I say contemporary science, but that's not good because Buddhist science is also contemporary. It's not like it's dead and gone. It's also contemporary. You see, I always have a problem in talking about, if we say Western science, that's ridiculous. What's West? And if we say universal, what's the other word? But anyway, universal, face it. The Buddhist science is universal also. It's hard to come up with a word. But anyway, there are other types of science that explain that the particles of water, I forget, are shaped such that they slide, or I forget. They slide. So you see, they've looked into particles and can explain why it moistens, and can explain why other shapes obstruct. So you see, the Buddhists are out to lunch on this one. There's more you can look into. You see, reasoning of nature means there's nothing more you can look into. Water is just wet and moistening. That's it. Fire is hot and burning. That's it. That's the nature. It's the nature of it. Emptiness is the nature. Now there are reasonings that prove emptiness. So it's not that you can't. You see, there is something you can look into right within Buddhism about emptiness being the nature of this. A whole lot of reasonings. Nagarjuna has 27 chapters. There's something you can look into. Emptiness is a mere absence of inherent existence. There's a whole lot that you can reflect on. 27 chapters, and within those chapters, there are many different types of reasonings, even within one chapter. But as far as wet and moistening goes, that's it. That's its nature. You can reflect on wet and moistening, I suppose, yeah, but that's it. But there's, Buddhism's out to lunch. There's something more about the particles. Well, particle science, there's particle science in Buddhism, the numbers of particles and so forth. But they don't tell you about this kind. Anyway, I just want to bring that up. Now, this one here, the decisive delineation through viewing all appearances as just naturally buddhafied is now down in the note it says reasoning of nature. This is their nature. But instead of translating it as reasoning of nature, this is their nature. Things are just naturally buddhafied. I went ahead and translated the same word instead of as nature. It's the word that I usually translate as noumenal, because the word is dharmata, and we have dharma, dharmata, so phenomenon and noumenal, despite the fact that most people, when they read this part, want to throw up, phenomenon, noumenal, using some special vocabulary from Western philosophy. But I'm not using it in Kant's meaning. I'm using noumenal just to mean reality. Because I found a dictionary that said noumenal just means reality. So phenomenon and noumenal, dharma, dharmata. Plus, we have another word that we translate as real and reality. But I do say reasoning of nature. Why? Because wet and moistening is the nature, the noumenon, of water. And I don't want to give it too glorious a name. Wet and moistening, I don't want to give it too glorious a name. But that everything is naturally buddhafied, I'll give that a glorious name. So, noumenal reasoning. There's nothing beyond the fact that all appearances are just naturally buddhafied. I mean, that's it. When you get to that level, that's just it. There's nothing beyond that. Now, he's going to say a whole lot about this. Just as Nagarjuna has 27 chapters with a whole lot of reasonings. He's going to say a whole lot that will pull us into imagining this.
And the standard reasonings for emptiness, like one or many and diamond slivers, this would be reasoning of tenable proof, or reasoning of nature. Nature.
This is a noumenal reasoning.
Or can one be both? I mean, is there some overlap?
I think he wants to say there isn't an overlap here. I think that's his point. That this is not going to be proved by a Madhyamaka reasoning. even if Nyingma Dzogchen is not opposed to using Madhyamaka reasonings in the process of breakthrough. In fact, it is open to using Madhyamaka reasonings in the process of breakthrough. So, if I were debating with you, I would take the opposite position of what I just said to you. I would say that Madhyamaka reasonings are most valuable for breakthrough, because I know they are. Khetsun Sangpo has taught me this. And that a Nyingma version of this is Jungne Drosum. That's a particularly Nyingma version that we talked about previously, which is from where do thoughts arise, where do they abide, and into what do they go. And he taught me that Madhyamaka reasonings are consonant with that, and that the Jungne Drosum, arise, abide, and go to, are consonant with the Madhyamaka reasonings, and Madhyamaka reasonings are consonant with it. And breakthrough, Gada teacher, Slundrup Turga. Gada is pure from the letter Ga, pure from the letter A. Teacher is the style of teaching that goes with it. Breakthrough, cutting through the hard, literally, cutting through the hard. Gada teacher. So that's the style of teaching that goes with pure from the letter A, pure from the letter Ga. Flundrup Turgel. Spontaneity, Flundrup. Turgel, leap over. Leap over means, leap over comes up in, I'm pausing on the, I was going to say many contexts in Buddhist meditative psychology. Well, and then if you ask me to list the many, I was wondering how many I could list, whether it's more than two. Leaping over levels of the path. So in Gada picture, purity from the letter A, in other words, essential purity, breakthrough or cutting through the hard. One is using Madhyamaka reasonings or arise, abide, go to. So I first answered that knowing all appearances as primordially buddhafied is not what's understood from Madhyamaka reasoning, or what's referred to here. But since Madhyamaka reasoning, middle way reasoning, as is in, and that means, as is in Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle, is not only allowable, but can be and is used for breaking through the hard. In other words, the crud of attachments of the mind, of the usual mind. What are you breaking through to? That certainly is at least something like primordial Buddhification. So if we don't, I'm trying to come up with some sort of final statement. If we don't take primordial Buddhification as final primordial Buddhification, then I'd have to take back my original answer to you. However, when you see what I was speaking from is that Mipam is saying, when he says this is the last, I believe he's saying it's not the third. And I believe he's trying to make the point, and I believe he means that Madhyamaka reasoning is included in the third. And that this is going beyond the third. And thus deserves to be called noumenal reasoning. Something beyond, a further level beyond. However, your question has made me put in a whole lot of qualification that is very, very important, because Madhyamaka reasoning is used for gata teacher, pure from the letter I, which is approached by way of breaking through the hard crud which is for which one of the prominent ways is by way of middle way reasoning. So we cannot take his identification of the fourth reasoning as entirely eliminating the third in any way whatsoever. Yeah, that's very important, very important. For instance, when in Gelugpa you directly perceive emptiness, reasoning, the process of mulling over reasoning is not operating. But in Gelugpa, you necessarily have done reasoning, have done. Therefore, as Zhongbok has been investigating, it is necessarily called even that direct realization is called a reasoning consciousness, or as I have, in order to have a more expansive term, it's called a rational consciousness. Even though it's a direct realization and you're not mulling over, the subject, my body, does not inherently exist because it is not any of its bases of designation. It is not this arm, it's not this arm, it is not the head, it is not the trunk, it is not this leg, it is not this leg, it is not something that is separate from these. This is the reasoning, right? You're no longer mulling it. Those conclusions have been reached. And you have realized that if it's not any of those, then it cannot be inherently existent. And then I am applying this to my body. And then there's the earth-shattering application to the absence of inherent existence. And then you've gotten used to this over the path of preparation. And then you're directly seeing that absence without any dualism whatsoever, without any conceptualization, without any conceptuality at all, without any of the 5 types of conceptuality at all. So, but even that is still called a rational consciousness. But here, the last, since here it appears to be a reasoning from the viewpoint of the final nature, it has been translated as a noumenal reasoning. It's still Rikpa. But it's a Rikpa. Reasoning. Then, so somewhere along the way we'll come to a discussion by Khetsun Sangpo of cell, dynamism, you know, were there 50 words? I don't think so. 20? But really, you know, you could get something out of each of the words. You could see what people were trying to do, and I don't have a favorite. I keep switching. I say, oh, dynamism would work good here. Effervescence would work good here. And it's great having had a Lama who goes like this. But of course, whether you call it Rikpa or, whatever word you use, whether you use Tibetan or some other word, it isn't going to be like this. The innermost awareness is going to be everywhere. So it's not going to be like this with something on top of it, but that does give you an idea. And then this ends up as two things, doesn't it? I mean, you got this hand and this hand. It's two things. But you see what they're trying to get away with. It's two things, but they aren't two things. Just like the ocean and the waves aren't two things. But it's very helpful. And every metaphor has a problem. Anyway, in talking about this, there are 3 stages. And so then cell, the dynamism, gets talked about in 3 stages. When it first appears, it's called cell. The, shall we call it, effervescence first. And then the second stage, when it gets a bit hardened, it's called roba, sport. And I don't know why roba is any more hardened than dynamism, effervescence. You see, effervescence, if you think of the bubbles don't get hardened. If you thought of dew, I'm just making this up. If you thought of dew that was going to freeze, what's frozen dew? Frost. Dew, frost, and then if you thought of thickened frost, I just made this up. Dew, frost, and thickened frost.
Frost.
What?
Hoarfrost.
Hoarfrost. Dew, frost, and hoarfrost. Yeah.
Or ice. Ice.
Well, hoarfrost sounds better. Thickened frost. H-O-A-R, right? H-O-A-R for whore. In Tibetan, let's use Germano's efflorescence, and then sport. And the third is gyen, ornament. Now you can see ornament. Ornament is, it's something hardened. If you think of waking up in stages, You know, sometimes we wake up and everything's immediately. But if you think of waking up and things, you know, things coming together. Unfolding or going from soft to hard appearance. 3 phases. So then Zel, Tse, Tse, Royal, Gen. Interesting.
How do you translate yen?
Ornament. I would use ornament rather than adornment. That'll come up somewhere later.
But all the 3 refer to pure and impure phenomena, yes?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Because Kien is
Yeah, I would think.
phenomena.
What comes to my mind right away is that when things are seen as, when things are just pure, that they would remain all within the, I'm just making this up now, all within the first phase. That they don't get hardened. But that's Jeffrey Dharma. They don't get hardened. But you see, in Jonan, everything is Vajra, hard. But that's a completely different meaning of hard. Completely different meaning of hard. When you get to reality, everything is hard. Everything is Vajra. As I said to one Chonang Lama, what do you mean everything's like stone? Can't move? And he just laughed and laughed. Which of course it doesn't mean. Because, you know, like the complete emanation, complete enjoyment body, you know, emanation bodies and so forth are super flexible if they want to be. Now, a good deal was added in what we went over last time from the double asterisks, because I was able to catch up with what we did. Went over last time, filling in what Khetsun Sangpo said. So I decided I better put in the Tibetan Zel for all these various words. When I translate a text, I try to be consistent. And of course here I'm sometimes saying projective prowess and sometimes dynamism. In translating a Lama's word, sometimes I'll slip around and use various terms. I'll allow myself more flexibility. So are there any questions?
I have one question about,
Yes.
I was looking up that word last time, it was a side topic, Makyo, the thing from the Zen tradition about appearances in meditation.
Makyo, M-A-K-Y-A-O.
Yeah, so in Tibetan tradition, they have the word N-Y-A-M,
Oh, Nyam.
meditative experiences, but are things written about that much in the Lupa? I see this thing from that obviously the Vajra essence talks at length about all these kind of thoughts, many of which I've had during our winter retreats. that come up. But he makes this is from Alan Wallace is talking about this. I found something about it in his stuff, and he makes the point that whereas that in the Zen tradition these were seen as negative, he makes the point that a lot of these things that come up are actually not negative. They're us seeing deeper parts of our mind. So my question more was, is much written about this? This before. This was from,
Yeah, I number one, I don't know. Number two, Khetsun Sangpo in the Lundrup Turgel, spontaneity, leap over practice, he talks about the with these spontaneous factors of mind, the increase of appearances to the point where he said it's like a huge movie, and increase of appearances. It's like the maturation of these spontaneous appearances to the point where increase, and then they start disappearing. And he's very interesting. He's very interesting about that topic. And as if the mind has to mature about the capacity of imagination. So that such that, and he said, one would even get angry at things that would appear. And I could see that he was talking from his own experience. And things that you wouldn't even like to appear will appear. And he said eventually, he didn't go into detail about, for instance, saying, I learned a lot about myself. And saying, he didn't say things like, I got a lot of advice from my teacher about blah, 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 and so forth. But obviously, he got a lot of advice to let them appear and to let them disappear. And in the heart of meditation book, there's advice about letting things appearing and letting them disappear. But you would think there would be texts of psychology, like what you're saying Alan Wallace is talking about, where there would be a developed psychology in texts. Okay? See you in a week.
Yeah.